Hey Matt, we're back for another episode of Stout Sportsmen. Matt and Scott here.
Yep. How's it going?
Not too bad.
Good.
We are actually going to start a little series today.
Yes.
And it's going to go a little ways. I'm going to do part 1 and 2, and then Matt's on the hook for part 3 and 4.
Part 3 and 4. All right.
Oh yeah. Part 1 is going to be, we're going to build the perfect jerkbait rod, and I have to say
perfect jerkbait rod for me.
Yep. Then that was
not
just
for
what
anybody else, just for me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is custom rod building, and if you're tuning in, I've started a small business called Ghost Rods, where I build custom rods. And Matt wants a jerkbait rod, so we're going to go through the whole process of how to get there and what we decided on. And everything, I already have everything purchased. Matt and I went back and forth probably, I don't know how, like over a few hours.
Yeah, over a few hours mostly. And I think from the original time I said, hey, I'd be interested in a jerkbait rod. I think it was, a couple of days, but the majority of it was in one day over the course of a few hours, just figuring out dimensions and everything that goes into it.
Yeah. I mean, and the one part of this is knowing what you want. Matt knew that he wanted a jerkbait rod. He knew what he has now, which we'll get to in a second. And then we took the characteristics from what he had into what he wanted. The rod he uses now is works, but isn't the most
of the 19 or 20 rods that I have. The rod that I use for jerkbaits is the closest thing that works. It's not perfect, but it's the closest as I have. But I wanted something a little bit more tailor fit for throwing jerkbaits.
Yep. So before we go over the rod you're using, I'm not here to bash short people, but Matt, you kind of fall in that category.
Yeah, I'm 5'7". So as you can see, right above my head, it says Stout. So it's Stout meaning, short and a little boxy kind of. So
I thought we were talking beer.
I fit the bill.
But anyways, a rod based on your height, a rod can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So Matt, go into what you're using now. And then,
right now I am using a Lew's Carbon Blue. This guy here is probably about 4 years old. It's not the GT model; it's the blue. They came out with that previous. But this is a 6'10", medium heavy, and let me see here. It's a fast taper. Line weight 10 to 20 pound. Lure weight 3/8 to 1 ounce. So basically, the reason I use this for a jerkbait rod, obviously, it's got to be on a bait caster, which this is, and it's basically your reel seat, which is basically the base of where your reel connects into your blank to the butt end here. This is the shortest rod I have that's under 7 feet with this distance in a bait caster. So that's why I've gone with this rod for throwing jerkbaits. With a jerkbait, most people, and especially me, I like to have that reel seat to butt, shorter than most of your off the shelf bait casters. So that was my thinking.
And what is the distance on that one? What would we figure out, like 10?
Right to the reel seat, we got. You want to the bottom of the seat holder thingy, or do you want?
So the bottom of this right here,
okay.
the
top
plastic part.
Okay, gotcha. 9.5 inches.
9.5.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're fishing a jerkbait, that part of the rod is going to be swinging back and forth.
Right.
And for most people, with that motion, you don't want to hit the handle,
hitting the inside of your arm or something like that. Yep. Yeah. Because some guys will throw the jerkbait. Sometimes they'll have it depending on what angles you got, but sometimes that butt might be like right toward your belly button or just above it, or it could be just under your arm there, just to your side. So depending. But for me, the shorter the better. Obviously you don't want to have just a 3-inch nub, but yeah.
Yeah, and I did that to myself. I have a 7'6" cranking rod.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 7'6" medium heavy, moderate fast, and you can see the handle on this is pretty long. It's about 12 inches.
Mm-hmm.
When I first made this rod, I had an 8-inch handle on it, and it was so heavy, top heavy, especially throwing, being a cranking rod or throwing deep diving crankbaits. So crankbaits around 1 ounce, and the rod was so unbalanced that throwing that actually felt like the rod was going to fly out of my hand while I was casting, which you don't want.
You had too much weight at the tip end of the rod rather than at the butt end. Right.
Yep.
And that's the fine line with the jerkbait rod, that you can't go too short on your handle.
Exactly. So this one actually moved, the 4 inches farther up, which is actually going to make it a little bit more balanced.
Right.
All right. So moving on to what we're going to do for Matt. So he said he had a 6'10",
right?
Which
to me, that it seemed just a little bit long. Ideally, I wanted somewhere between 6'6" and 6'10".
Yep.
But I also had to take into account, if I'm moving my reel seat and where my reel is closer to the butt end of the rod, I got to factor that in for my overall length too.
Yeah. And also it makes a difference what kind of boat you're fishing out of.
Right.
Depending on how you're standing towards the water. If you have too long of a rod and you're trying to do a jerkbait motion, which is mostly like this, with the rod tipped down towards the water, too long of a rod, and you're going to be...
You're in the water.
Yeah, you're just going to be slapping the water all day.
Right. Yep.
So what we did, we came to a conclusion of, this is a 6'6" length.
Yep.
That's 6 feet 6 inches. So we're taking 4 inches off of the length of what Matt has already.
Currently, yep.
I forget what you said for lure weight. This one does 1/4 ounce to 3/4 ounce.
Okay. The lures I currently use is 3/8 to 1 ounce.
Yep. So we're moving to a shorter rod that's not going to be able to handle as much, but you're not throwing a 1 ounce jerkbait.
No, I'm not throwing some big, huge, mega bass or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're able to take down the size of the rod. I think you said that was a medium heavy.
Medium heavy, yes.
Yep. So we're going to a medium.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go down to a little bit lighter rod. Handles the lure is going to be, the lure weight is going to go down a little bit. But by making it lighter, you're going to be able to fish it longer by lowering the weight.
Right.
This blank itself is, let me just look it up here, 1.45 ounces. So I'm guessing that we're going to be under 3 ounces by the time we're done building it.
Yeah, should be pretty close. Yep.
So the reel that you're using is probably going to weigh more than this rod.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Going to be.
Yep.
So that's another thing to take into account with balance is the reel. If we made the handle too short, you'd have like a brick right here at the end of the rod.
Right.
So we have to take that into account, and the handle has to be. That's the biggest thing in a rod is to try to balance it out.
Right.
So this rod is a moderate fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Action. I believe you said that one was a fast.
That was a fast, yes.
So what you're going to do with treble hook baits, you really don't want a fast rod because what is happening is your tip is very sensitive, but using treble hooks, which is what jerkbaits you have on them, you want to pin that fish and make I wish I had some treble hooks out, but I don't. The treble hooks are, they're real small. Actually, I do. Let's see if I can pull one of these. Matt will get a kick out of that one.
Yeah.
Faithful.
Yeah.
So treble hook right there is real short. So the fish can, if you have a rod that's too stiff, they're going to be able to throw that and get it out of their mouth, unless you have them really pinned good. But that's the kind of hook we're dealing with when I say treble hook. So what we want to do is have a rod that has a little bit more give in it. So that fast action rod, all of the bend is closer to the tip, where this is going to be a moderate fast. So it still has a decent tip, but it's going to have a little bit more bend and flex in the midsection.
Right.
So that's going to be a little bit better for Matt. You're going to take a little bit of the tip out, so it may even help a little bit with your jerkbait motion. You're not going to be, shooting the jerkbait through the water as much. You're going to get that more of that, side to side action. So after the rod, we're going to go to handle.
Okay.
I think the handle on that, if you want to pull that up, is a wind grip handle.
Yeah, it's a foam handle.
Oh, it's foam. Okay.
It is foam. Yes. Yeah, the Mach 2 blues had the wind grips on it.
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge fan of the foam. I mean, some of my rods have them, some don't. But I went with I believe I went with the wind grips, didn't I?
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we're going to get to.
Yep.
So we're going to go to this for a handle. This is a 3.5 inch handle. With most of your casting rods, you're going to have your hand right on the reel anyways.
Right.
And I mean, I have pretty big hands, so I mean, I don't need very much more than, that's 3.5 inches. That's basically all I need.
Yeah.
With the reel. So you're going to actually have the reel seat and the rear grip. I mean, that's all you need.
Yep.
So we went with a 3.5 inch because honestly, they don't really make them any smaller. I mean, I actually would have went with a 2.5 if they made a 2.5, but they don't. But this right here is probably gonna, not sure if you're not really gonna get in. It's gonna be more feel. It's gonna be, you've used wind grips before, Matt, so yeah. This is just gonna have a little bit more rubbery feel to it, and you may actually be able to have like a looser grip and a little less stress in your hand. Reel seat, there isn't really much there to talk about.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the next thing we're going to talk about is the butt grip.
Yep.
So I think the one on yours is probably almost double the size of this little guy. This is a one.
Let me measure the length on this one. It's about 2.25 inches.
Yep. So this is 1.5 inch. So you're going to cut down a lot of.
Yep. Yeah.
A lot of material you don't need. And a little passing traffic there. So the nice thing with these butts is they have a little EVA on the end. You got the little bit of grip here if you needed it, but the EVA on the end is going to work out nice for jerk baiting. So it's going to rub up against your clothes. If that was rubber, you'd start gripping to your clothes.
Exactly.
So that's just the butt there. Not a huge thing, but it's just something where
something to think about.
You're taking almost of an inch of material off the rod that you don't need. So you're going to lose a little bit of weight there. I think finally we're going to talk about guides. And some of my favorite guides here are these light duty. They're stainless steel. They're called they're the SSR guide, and normal guides have that little pressed in. Usually they're made out of ceramic.
Yeah, the insert.
Yep. Now these are made different. They're actually pressed around the guide. It's hard to see because they're so small.
Right.
But there's a huge weight difference between the two. The other part of this is this is a size 8 that we start with, the biggest guide of them all. As we get down, these are actually a size 5, and these are like your little running guides. There's hardly anything to it. Kind of a pain to wrap, but they're really nice on the rods, real light. But the other nice thing is this is actually a size 12 that has the ceramic in it.
Okay.
And this being a size 8 actually has almost the same opening. So you can almost see, putting them next to each other, you can see there's a huge difference between the amount of material used. And I mean, obviously you can't feel them, but to me, I can feel them in my hands, the difference. The difference there. So these are nice. They're a lot lighter. You're not really giving up any strength. But you're losing that weight. So with these, we're actually going to, and I'm sure that that Lose rod probably has guides with ceramic inserts in them.
Yes, that is correct. Yep. So how many guides are going to be on there? Is it what, 7?
Oh,
8?
no. This is 1, 2, 3. This is actually going to be 10 guides.
10 guides. Okay.
The first 2 are double foot.
Yep.
Real small. Oh, actually, that's not the right one. The first 2 are double foot. And then we just get to these running guides, which are all real
singles.
tiny.
Yep. The ones that you don't want to step on when that rod's laying on the deck. Yep.
They're pretty rugged though. You know, it's not the nice thing about these is that you're not going to break any of those ceramic.
Right, they're not going to crack.
Inserts.
I've had inserts where those have cracked, you know, from getting stepped on or from, you know, whacking the tip against something, side of the boat, a bridge, whatever.
So yeah, I mean, if you step on that, I mean, you probably will bend some metal.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking this is going to be a little bit more, little better than the ceramic guides.
Yeah.
I have them on a few rods of my own, and I really like them. They're real light. You wouldn't think that much would make a difference, but they do.
Yeah. I mean, if you figure that rod blank was what, under 2 ounces?
This blank is 1.45 ounces.
So I mean, over the course of say 10 guides, I mean, what are you talking? You're talking probably grams.
Oh yeah, I mean it's.
But,
if I had a scale small enough, I'd actually try and weigh them. Maybe I'll try and do that.
But when your base is 1.4 ounces or whatever it was, you know, every single gram is going to make a noticeable difference for sure.
Yep.
You
know. Only thing left to talk about is this is part 1 that you're watching now.
Yeah.
Part 2 is going to be me actually building the rod. I'm going to set up a camera. I'm going to see if I can set it up so it kind of shoots down over my head so you can kind of see what I'm doing, kind of the process that I go through to do it.
Right.
I'll probably do it in a not slow motion. What am I looking for?
Time lapse.
I'll do it a time lapse because, I mean, it takes a little while. The handle takes probably a good half an hour or so to put together and do right. Then wrapping all the guides. And honestly, I'm not going to sit here and make you watch hours of the rod turning.
Right.
After you put the epoxy on, it sits there and it's going to spin for, because I do a couple coats of epoxy, it's going to spin for a couple days. So after it spins for a couple days, then just make sure it's all dry, and then it'll be off to mat. So the part 2 is going to be building the rod, and then we really didn't talk about part 3 and 4. So Matt, what we're going to do, part 3 is you're going to actually get the rod.
Most likely, I'll drive up and pick it up because I don't want to pay for the PVC pipe and the shipping. It's not worth it. I can probably just make a trip up there and pick it up. Yeah, shipping rods is no joke. It costs about probably $30, $35 to ship it. So yeah, at some point we'll rendezvous and get you the rod. So what I'd like for you to do as part 3 would be to review the rod before you even take it out in the water. Do a short video, how it feels. I'll do a short video on my impressions of the rod, and then I'll kind of go over what reel I'm going to put on it. I have no idea what I'm going to put on there yet. I'm not going to put that. I'm going to leave that lose reel on that lose rod so I can use that for something else, but I'm going to have to do a little research and figure out exactly what ratio, all that stuff that I need for a good jerkbait rod. So yeah, and you can put that in part 3 of ratio and all that. Another thing would be is to see if you can, because that this is going to be a very light rod. It would be an interesting thing if you could look through and find a reel that's super light. And when you're talking about something lighter, you're getting into your magnesium type stuff. So I mean, a custom rod, I should put a solid reel on there. Probably looking at $200 or so, or more, who knows? But if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the websites, they list how many ounces the reel weighs. Right. But what you have to take into account is like your drag system. If you have a heavier drag system, you're going to have a heavier reel. Right. But being a jerkbait rod, you may not need that drag system. There's a whole lot of I mean, I don't need it. I don't need a 20-pound drag on there. They got like a 10-pound drag. It's probably sufficient. I mean, although the time of year that I will be using this, probably springtime and fall mostly, I'm going to be hooking up with a lot of pike as well. Because I know the pike down here like hitting jerk baits. So, and some of the pike can get decent size. So just make it more fun. So this is going to be. I'm going to actually post this on the Ghost Rods Facebook page so that my customers and followers can see, what we went through to build this rod. To give kind of a just an overview of what happens through this whole process. Right. Obviously, Matt and I, we've known each other for a long time, so we can be a little bit more detailed. I don't expect everybody to be able to, do a back and forth like we do to figure out what we're going to do. I think the last thing would be part 4 is actually going to be Matt using it on the water and his impressions of actually fishing with it. Right. Yeah. How it feels, throwing different weighted baits on there, and hopefully get some video of some fish catches too. That'd be nice. Yeah. That's the process. Obviously part 4 is going to be a couple months down the road. But part 2 will be coming out here in probably a couple weeks. Part 3 will be in probably a couple weeks after that. And part 4 you'll have to wait for. But I'm thinking I really hope to be out on the water by the end of March, hopefully. Obviously weather permitting, but end of March, early April. Cool. All right. Well, I think this does it for us. It's Matt. I'm Matt. I'm Scott. He's Scott. And we're Stout Sportsmen. Yeah. Like and share. We haven't been saying that lately. No, we haven't. But like and share. Comment. And comment below. Let us know what you think. Within reason. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Stay
We're out.